and welcome to another episode of Weather or Not. I'm your host, Frank Gargione, alongside forecaster Becca Newell. Now, Becca, it has been a very dry and pleasant past couple days. Can we expect that heading into the weekend?
We sure can. For the first couple days, things are going to be pretty dry, pretty pleasant. Until Sunday, we have a system moving in that might bring some precipitation, but it's actually a good thing because it's been pretty dry here the past couple days.
Nice. Thank you, Becca. You'll hear more from her in her forecast, but for now, the nature and the news.
If you tuned in last week, you might remember the disturbance set to become Tropical Storm Gabrielle over the weekend. Well, the weekend has come and gone, and unexpectedly, so has the disturbance. Despite initial favorable conditions for development, tropical disturbance Invest 91L has fallen apart significantly. At one point, the National Hurricane Center was 80% sure of its development into a tropical storm. So, how did it break apart over water? Well, similar to our current conditions, one reason was that the air was too dry. A surge of dry air carrying Saharan dust, along with vertical wind shear, which is the shift of wind speed and direction of wind with height, impeded the organization of Invest 91L's thunderstorms and ultimately caused its decay. This takes place on top of an already underperforming hurricane season that will hopefully continue.
Becca discussed Invest 91L, but let's touch more on the Atlantic Basin as a whole. Today marks the climatological peak of hurricane season, but conditions across the tropics are unusually quiet. Since Tropical Storm Ferdinand dissipated on August 28th, no new systems have formed, creating a 12-day lull at a time when storm activity is typically at its highest. Meteorologists explain that while short breaks are not uncommon, such an extended pause in early September is rare, especially given the widespread extent of unusually warm to record warm sea surface temperatures. Last year offered a similar case, with nearly 3 weeks of inactivity before a sudden surge of storms later in the season. Experts emphasize that this year's calm does not signal the end of the season. The tropics can change quickly, and forecasters continue to watch for signs of new development. In fact, Colorado State's biweekly tropical outlook issued on September 3rd called for a 65% chance of near normal activity in the next 2 weeks.
Lightning-ignited wildfires in Northern California have torn through the historic Gold Rush-era town of Chinese Camp, creating widespread destruction. Although most of the buildings have long been abandoned, long-standing historic landmarks were toppled by the blaze. Miraculously, a church built in 1854 survived the flames, a symbol of resilience amongst the debris. The World Meteorological Organization has linked this disaster to climate change, stating that climate change has been driving up temperatures, drying out landscapes, and worsening air quality year after year. According to the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, this is just one of 6,832 wildfires in the state of California this year. For residents of Chinese Camp and the surrounding affected areas, the devastation is a powerful reminder of how quickly everything can change.
A fierce weather system battered New South Wales, especially Sydney and its surroundings, with a chaotic mix of heavy rain, thunderstorms, flash flooding, large hail, and wind gusts over 90 kilometers per hour, all unfolding within a single dramatic wave of bad weather. Over just 24 hours, the New South Wales State Emergency Service responded to an astounding 854 calls for help and carried out 34 rescues, including a dramatic operation to save people stranded in rapidly rising floodwaters. New South Wales State Emergency Service Assistant Commissioner urged residents to stay safe and to turn around and don't drown. The culprit? A coastal low-pressure system moving northeast that continues to bring dangerous surf, coastal erosion, and flooding risks. To make matters even more unusual, 2 tornadoes were confirmed in the southwest slopes, a region in New South Wales.
It's been a generally dry start to the month here in State College, but things may be changing this weekend. Starting off on Friday, we do have a cold front slicing through the northeastern part of the Commonwealth, but things here are forecasted to stay dry and clear. That's because of this high pressure system to our south that's bringing in warm air as it circulates clockwise into our area. It's going to be keeping conditions warm and inhibiting precipitation and cloud formation. But not for too long, as Saturday is going to be seeing the start of some cloud cover, and although there's rain up here in the northwest, it's not quite going to reach us, which might be good because Saturday is game day. And whether you're tailgating or you have student tickets or regular tickets, it's going to be a pleasantly warm and overall dry day. Now, as we get to Sunday, here's where the shift happens. We have another cold front moving through the region that is bringing a chance of rain. And although it is just a chance, it is something that we desperately need here in State College. So hopefully it will come to fruition. Now taking a quick recap, Friday, it's going to be warm with a high of 81 degrees and almost entirely sunny. Friday night's going to be seeing the pickup of some clouds and a low of 54. Saturday, those clouds are going to be sticking around, but again, generally quite beautiful day for a game against, I think we're up against Villanova this week. I don't know, I don't have tickets. But Saturday night, it's going to be a low of 58. Those clouds are going to be sticking around for Sunday, when hopefully we see those showers, those much, much needed showers. Now for the feature featuring Filippo and Luke.
Over the last semester, we have undergone a great studio renovation here in Walker Building on the Penn State University Park campus. Now those renovations are all set and done, so let's take you around our brand new studio, starting out with Studio B. And you may recognize this monitor from last semester. This is what we were forecasting in front of throughout the spring of 2025, but now it's back here in our Studio B. Not a lot of the renovations happened in here, but most significantly, brand new flooring, brand new ceiling tiles, brand new light fixtures, and what I like most about this renovation is this right here. This is the teleprompter that we used last semester, and now it's here in Studio B. This used to just be a camera, and we would see ourselves in this screen right below it, but now this projects up into this camera here on a sheet of glass, and we can actually see what we're talking about while talking straight to the camera. Otherwise, this is mostly unchanged from what we saw just 2 semesters ago. A lot of the really big changes happened in Studio A. So in the Band Family Studios, we have brand new soundproofing in this control room, a ton of new technology, but a lot of the same technology as well. We have our graphics system on this computer right here, but we have a brand new TriCaster. This is how all the behind the scenes magic works. So we have all these different camera shots that our director, who's behind the scenes, goes through, and that's how we get all of our different segments to look the way that they do. So right now we have our chroma key popped up here. This is where the forecaster will do their forecast and their extended forecast, but we also have our post shot here. We have both of our nature and the news spots here as well. So this is where all the behind the scenes magic happens to produce the great show that you all see on air every weekend. So let's take a step into the actual studio here, and this is where all of the big changes have happened. We have much newer facilities in here, brand new technology basically across the board. Here is where our forecaster will stand and deliver their forecasts, and you may notice compared to last semester where we had a physical graphic behind us, now we just have a green wall and we actually don't physically have something behind us to put our surface maps on, and that's because that is a bunch of post-processed magic that happens as the chroma key kind of filters out and puts into the perspective of our graphics. So the forecaster will look right into this teleprompter, and that's where we see ourselves. So you can see me talking right now, as well as on that monitor right there, and this monitor right here. So when those graphics are put in place with that post-processing magic, we actually can see what the graphic is showing through these 3 monitors, but not actually looking straight behind us. So another big feature that we have is brand new cameras, 3 of them in fact, and this camera 2 here is what we use for our open and close. We have a timer above it, and that shows us how much time we have left in our forecast or our extended forecast, and that's how we kind of put together the whole show in order to be that 15 minutes in length. Everything is timed out. All of our forecasters and our hosts are always under a time restriction to make the episode as great as possible. they can always see themselves in our monitors as well. So a great brand new studio, brand new flooring in here as well, and everything is hanging from the ceiling now instead of being on the floor. We used to have our cameras actually positioned on the floor. There would be tons of wires everywhere that we would have to carefully step over all the time. Now we don't have those problems, but we do have a ton of tape on here so we don't bump our heads. So a little compare and contrast there. We have a little makeup studio over here so we can see ourselves in the mirror. This thing actually will turn on and light up, so super professional. We used to have a door right here, and we got rid of it, added some extra soundproofing here. So on the outside of this studio, where there used to be a door, now there's just kind of a slated panel. So we try to have it blend in as best as possible, but it is kind of like a sheetrock there. We have a table for some of our other stuff that we do here at Penn State for interviews and whatnot. But we do have people that come into the studio and they'll sit down and they'll watch the shows. And they can do that now, usually beforehand. You would just kind of have to peek into those side monitors. Now we have actual program monitors for the audience to see. So if I stepped out in front of the chroma key, you can see in that monitor what you're seeing on air, which is really cool and creates a much better audience experience. We also have a much better experience for our forecasters. We have this hanger right here, so you can see all the ties I wear on air here, and that makes everything much easier for our students as they go to class. They can come back and their clothes is right here. So our brand new studios, they're here, and we're so glad to have them for all the great times on Whether or Not in the future. For Whether or Not, I'm Filippo Formica.
The autumn equinox is approaching soon, which means the official start of fall. Now, meteorological fall has already begun, but if you took a look at the weekend forecast temperatures, they didn't really seem to reflect that. Things have been a little bit chillier in the mornings, but as we head further into the day, our high temperatures around 80 degrees on both Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's way too high for this time of year, in my personal opinion, and for the average. Now, if we take a further look at this weekend recap, we have mostly sunny skies on Friday with a high of 81 and a low of 54. Saturday, we see some clouds build up, and again, game day, so it's still going to be pretty nice. Partly sunny with a high of 80 and a low of 58. And then Sunday, we see the chance for those hopefully much needed showers and a high of 80 and a low of 54. Now, with those chance of showers, if we don't get them, what's next week going to look like? Is it going to save for that? Unfortunately, no. And again, those temperatures are soaring. Look at them. Not a single temperature below the average for the season, and barely any clouds throughout the entire week. Monday's expected to be mostly sunny. Tuesday's expected to be mostly sunny. Wednesday, we're going to be seeing partly cloudy skies. And then Thursday and Friday are entirely sunny. And again, the average temperature is around 75 degrees. And again, not a single day is beneath that. Now, time for your weather whiz quiz answer.
And the answer is A, the Enhanced Fujita Scale, also known as the EF scale. Interestingly enough, Becca, we have not had an EF5 tornado since 2013.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, that was the Moore, Oklahoma tornado.
Yes.
It's been about 12 and a half years since that happened, so hopefully that trend continues.
Yes. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have for tonight, but join us next week for another episode of Whether or Not. Thank you all for watching.